Hi everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the week for another tea break again. This one's a big one, of course, not big, obviously. I say that about every episode we do, but we're just going to kind of do a little catch up on where we're at with the T20 World Cup, of course, given the fact that we're about midway or so through the Super 8 stage now, so we're really starting to get towards that back end of the tournament. I mean, it's been a great tournament, largely so far. I mean, obviously for you as an Australia fan, maybe slightly less so, Ben. Although you don't really care about this Australian cricket team, so maybe it has been a good tournament for you. So yeah, I mean, how have you found it so far?
Look, from that point of view, it's been great. My highlight was Australia getting comprehensively thumped by Zimbabwe, which I did have a little bit of a bone to pick with the media though. Zimbabwe are not minnows anymore. They're not, they're giant killers, sure, but they're not sort of some fly-by-night country. They're a full member nation, but I think from an Australian point of view, they'd be really disappointed with their tournament. They did, send Oman packing in the equal quickest run chase in T20 history, which I did watch the other night, and it was, superb. But shout out to, I think it's Shaquille of Oman, who for mine took home the award for best celebration of the tournament, and also took out his wicketkeeper in the same motion. So, but yeah, tournament so far has been full of highlights, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of those stories and where things stand at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, look, partially you could say it's gone somewhat as expected, with the exception of their heavy defeat to South Africa the other day. India largely dominant, as you would have expected in their own backyard. Once again, absolutely flattening Pakistan in a completely non-competitive matchup between the two of them for the umpteenth time in the last decade or beyond. We're fed up with it, ICC. You got to change the fixturing. England, although nervy, making it through the group relatively comfortably in the end, and now we are into the semi-finals. I've been much more impressed with our two Super 8 wins against Sri Lanka and Pakistan. I was happy at that fixturing because I knew New Zealand were the ones who were going to give us the most trouble. So the fact that we're going into the game against them without having to worry about whether we win or lose is at least comforting. Although I would like us to win to try and keep the momentum in, because we're going to be playing some very difficult teams from here on out if we are to obviously win this whole thing. I do want to highlight, of course, one team in particular being West Indies. I wouldn't say a surprise package, of course, because I expected them to win games and get into the Super 8s, but it's the manner of which they've been winning most of their games. They've been so largely dominant across their games so far, which has been not only brilliant to see, because everyone loves a good West Indies team because it reminds us of the days of old, right? Talking about it like I know what they were like in the 70s. Well, obviously I don't know.
And 80s and 90s,
yeah. But it's been exactly a decade since they last won this competition. Of course, that was in India as well back in 2016. That famous, or if you're an England fan like myself, infamous final victory from West Indies' point of view. I've done the impression before, but why not? Let's just do it again. The good old Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name. Apologies, Bish, if you're watching, and if you are watching, Ian Bishop, please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all that good stuff, as the rest of you good people out there. But, I mean, look, what's your take been on the West Indies so far? Because, I mean, they've been impressive for me.
The West Indies, look, I sort of went into the tournament sort of looking at their lineup and thinking, well, they had the possibility to obviously set the tournament on fire, and that's exactly what they've done. But I sort of thought, they might wobble a little bit. I did say in our preview episode a few weeks ago that I thought Italy might actually knock them off. That didn't eventuate, but no, they've been really impressive for mine. The usual suspects, Joseph, Hope, Shaquille Hussain of Renegades and Sixers form.
Yeah, I think you lost me before, but I think I'm back now. Then Shaquille Hussain, did you just say?
That's exactly Akil Hussain. Sorry, yeah.
There we go.
I'm getting my niche cricketers confused there. Yeah. But yeah, look, I saw them against Zimbabwe the other night, and they absolutely torched them. Putting 200 either on the board.
Yeah, I didn't watch that, but Hetmeyer absolutely.
It was superb. I mean, Zimbabwe dropped a few sort of clutch catches that they would have taken in previous games, but the Windies have been fantastic, and I think they're going to be possibly a dark horse to make the final. They're well coached, and they've got a really settled lineup. So I guess they're my surprise packet of the tournament in terms of the final four that end up going through.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that group hasn't yet had any team eliminated or progress, but I mean, look, the way the West Indies are playing, obviously they've got that massive game against South Africa tonight. If they're to win that, that will put them straight into the semi-finals, of course, as will it put South Africa in if they're to go and win that game themselves, which obviously brings the question in now that we'll touch on one of the hosts, India. Are they actually going to make the semi-finals? Because they lost heavily to South Africa. Whilst I imagine they're going to probably beat Zimbabwe, although you never know, could West Indies beat them regardless and knock them out? That's the big question here, really, isn't it?
Well, that's the big question, I guess. As a host country, and obviously, a lot riding on it from an Indian point of view. The cricket's a religion over there, and we've seen that from the crowds in their previous games. I'd be really surprised if they didn't make it through. But having said that, from a West Indies point of view, I saw South Africa, took India to the cleaners the other day, and rightly so. But I think the Windies could really surprise them. I think they're actually. It seems to me like the Windies are actually playing those conditions in India quite well, which is good for them. But I think that's going to be a fantastic contest. And I mean, I guess in terms of the game later on tonight, India-Zimbabwe, I think, as much as Zimbabwe will be looking to bounce back after that horror show the other night, I think India should account for them without too much trouble.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I mean, look, it was a great group stage for Zimbabwe, especially Brian Bennett, but I think we were kind of seeing it as a point when they got put into what is then practically the group of death, that we didn't give them much chance of going through. But it's still been an incredible tournament. I mean, that win against Australia was superb. The win against Sri Lanka, just as good in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
touching on Sri Lanka here, obviously the other host of this tournament, I think it's just been, they're out now, of course. That heavy defeat to New Zealand last night has sent them out in the World Cup. They've still got that game against Pakistan to play, of course, which can still affect who else goes through with us from our group. But in that perspective of Sri Lanka, I think it's just they looked very good early on. They dispatched Oman, and that win against Australia was massive as well. But I think when they lost to Zimbabwe in that final group stage game, it suddenly just knocked their confidence back again. And it's just looked like those games against us and New Zealand, because there was times in both of those games where they were well on top of us and New Zealand, and ultimately lost by a massive margin in the end. It just feels like the confidence of that Zimbabwe, the confidence that got knocked out of them from that Zimbabwe defeat has basically affected them since then, and they've just not looked the team that they were against Australia. I mean, look, we knew also that they were heavily, as good as they've been, they were heavily reliant on runs from Kusal Mendis and Pathum Nissanka, and both of them struggled big time against us in New Zealand, and is one of the main reasons also I think they ended up losing those games so heavily. Nissanka obviously got that wonderful century against Australia, backed it up with another good 60 or so against Zimbabwe in a losing cause, but then only got 5 against us, got a first ball duck with an absolute jaffer of a ball from Matt Henry, by the way. I don't know if you saw it.
I did actually see that earlier this morning. It was an absolute ripper. We've seen a few of those in the tournament where, terrific balls to take wickets with the opening delivery of the innings.
3 dismissals in that New Zealand innings.
Yeah.
From their spinners. I mean, Teachner got one of them. I think Hamantha, it was, who got one of the other ones. That just kind of, where the balls just kind of turned back really sharply on a full length almost. It looked like an absolutely outfoxed. I think Mark Chapman got one of them. I think Ravindra got another one, and then Shamira also bowled Glenn Phillips earlier in the innings, and that was when they were looking like they were on top. But just like against us, when they had a position when they were on top, it just completely unravelled for them at the back end of the innings. And then the beginning of their innings in another poor power play. Like, they had a shocking power play against us and a pretty poor one against New Zealand as well. So yeah, look, they're out. I mean, look, they did excellent to end up getting through their group, even though that defeat to Zimbabwe wasn't amazing from their point. But they had some, like, that win against Australia will be remembered for a while, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah.
Speaking of Australia, it's only fair I touch on them now. Just another shocking T20 World Cup performance, really, from them. And in reality, I'm quite stunned about this. Apparently, in the 10 editions that have been of the T20 World Cup since it began back in 2007, Australia have only made the final twice and have only made the semi-finals 3 times in the history of the T20 World Cup. So
yeah.
Clearly it's a format they're just always struggling in, and whatever the reason may be, who knows, right? Could it be the fact that the Big Bash is constantly being interrupted by the players who would play for Australia, were constantly playing Ashes cricket, or if not Ashes, other home series obviously, and they're not really getting a chance to play much T20 cricket. There's no excuse that the players in this current team don't have experience in Indian pitches, because, you know, I know they played their games in Sri Lanka, but they know these subcontinental conditions. They're playing, I know, you know, India, Sri Lanka different. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was, believe it or not, I was watching Michael Clark's podcast the other day, because actually he had some good insight on this. Normally I hate listening to that twat, but but yeah, no, I thought like he had some good insight on the reason why Australia keep failing in T20 cricket. This one in particular, and I agree with him, I don't know about you, the selection was wild. Like, especially for that Sri Lanka game. I mean, look, Matt Renshaw was the only one who batted well against Zimbabwe despite the heavy defeat. Then he got dropped for the Sri Lanka game. Like, the preparation was all over the place. I know a lot of Aussie fans will go, oh, we've got no Stark retired, Hazelwood and Cummins both injured. So what? You're Australia. You've still got players who are more than capable enough of getting you through a group stage at least. Maybe not winning it, but getting you through the group, and in that group in first place. Look, no disrespect to Zimbabwe and Sri Lanka, but you should have still won that group at a cancer. With all the difference in quality. And the fact, like, Adam Zampa was still there, he was not that particularly bad. I know he got a ball well and took a 4-for against Oman, but it didn't matter then. Glenn Maxwell, I mean, look, I think he's almost certainly going to be retiring at this point now from international cricket, because he's really getting on a bit now. Marcus Stoinis is another one who I think's days are behind him now. For me, I don't understand why Cameron Green's playing for Australia in any format at this point of view. He was one of their worst players in the Ashes series, and that's difficult to say, because largely most of their players had a decent series, but he was pretty crap, especially with the bat. He's batting at 3 in their T20 comp. For some reason, this guy's got the most expensive contract again in the IPL. Like, I don't get what the cricketing world sees in Cam Green that I don't, or other cricketing fans don't, because he's just so average in my opinion right now. Yeah, he can bowl well, but batting, he's shocking. So I don't expect, you know, we don't know how Cricket Australia's selectors think. Maybe he'll still get picked and selected. Look, I don't want Matt Renshaw to become a full-time member of Australia's squad, because it's going to take him away from Brisbane Heat squad, but fair credit where credit's due. He is definitely deserving of playing for them and should have played well. My favourite thing, being an avid Steve Smith hater, is Steve Smith gets flown out from wherever he was all the way to sit on the bench to watch his team lose to Sri Lanka, and then gets told to go home because they don't need to bother playing him in a meaningless game against Oman. I mean, have that, you twat, Smith.
But I think with Australia, you're right in terms of, I think the Ireland and that Oman game, they sort of papered over the cracks in terms of the real issue. I heard news reports saying that the Australians don't take the T20 format seriously, and I have to agree. You know, McDonald can say the opposite as much as he likes, but it's true. And especially with where the tournament was held. I mean, how many of these Aussie guys in that squad were playing IPL or have played IPL? Like, they know the conditions, and
The thing is, obviously, they didn't play in India. They only played in Sri Lanka because that was where their group games were. And obviously, Sri Lankan conditions are vastly different to Indian conditions. That's where the selection goes again. You know, in Sri Lanka, you're going to be needing to bowl at least 3, maybe even 4 spinners in a 20-over innings at some point. Like you're really only going to need 2 pace options at the most in those conditions, arguably a third just in case, right? But it's all going to be about spin, and I just think it was so poor. Like they had a series against Pakistan, which obviously they lost 3-0, but the preparation there was just off as well. Like some of the players who played in Pakistan weren't really playing in the World Cup, like Matt Kuhneman. Like, so why would you go use that series, play players who aren't going to really be played in the World? Like, surely you use that series to prepare your players for the World Cup. It's reeks of England's poor preparation for the Ashes series before that, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, look, we don't want to spend too much on one team here, but just saying, like, Australia is a massive failure, and it's happened again. Really, as an English fan, it makes me delighted though that they've only made 3 World Cup semi-final appearances in 10 editions of the T20 World Cup, whereas this is our 5th T20 World Cup in a row where we've made the semi-finals at least.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're at least dominating Australia in terms of one format of this sport at the moment. How long may that continue?
Definitely, but I guess I guess in terms of we know the teams that went through. So why don't we touch on the sides that didn't make it through?
Yeah,
but also I guess in that a couple of the highlights.
I was going to say, like, if we're talking about Australia, it's only fair we talk about Australia's B team, I guess you could say, Italy, because about 5 of them at least are Australian. You know, the Mosca brothers, the Menenti brothers, and Grant Stewart, which I found out the other day is also Australian. I don't know if there's any more in there who are Australian, probably, right? But look, even though they obviously didn't go through, and I don't think we really expected them to go through, you still got to put up the effort for Italy. They did win one of those games comfortably as well against Nepal. Gave us a right scare, even though we won it relatively comfortably, and obviously West Indies brushed them aside. But I mean, and they gave a good account of themselves despite going down relatively comfortably against Scotland again. I think batting, they definitely showed their capabilities. I think their main issue came with their bowling. If anything, they didn't seem to quite have enough in terms of the skill level. I mean, look, Menenti was impressive. I expected him to be one of their best players, but the fact that he's got a lot of experience here between him and Grant Stewart, and that really was how it looked in the end. Like, it was really just him and Grant Stewart, in my opinion, who showed the best account of themselves. I thought Harry Menenti led. I mean, obviously Wayne Madsen going down in that first game against Scotland, which we live streamed, of course, not good for them. Harry Menzies did a good job as captain. I just thought he didn't really show anywhere near enough with the bat when it came to it. His brother Ben did way more of the heavy lifting with their runs when it came to it. And the Mosca brothers, I mean, look, a bit hit and miss at times, but they did show their class at times. That, you know, that chase against Nepal, of course, where they went wicketless to win that game, is a prime example of that. I mean, look, good first audition of a World Cup for Italy. Whether there's more to come, right, depends on that. I mean, look, how did you see Italy's World Cup, I guess?
Yeah, look, I'd be really hopeful based on that effort that there'd be more of these opportunities for them moving forward. I definitely thought, the Mosca brothers had a really good tournament. I mean, we saw a couple of games, and I think it was that Scotland game we live streamed where I think
each of them had a first baller throughout.
That's what I was just about to say.
First baller, which was caught by the gully, I believe. Lees took that catch against Scotland, and Justin had a first baller against us. I think it was. Wasn't it?
That's right. But I think they can certainly hold their heads up high in terms of the associate nations that do try and qualify for these sort of tournaments. I think they feel now that they can match it with those sides. Really well coached under John Davison, the hero.
Another Aussie, by the way.
Another Aussie, that's right. But we'll talk about them in a moment. But the Menenti brothers never stopped trying. They had some quality moments with the bat. A couple of half centuries in there as well. The bowling, JJ Smuts was okay for them.
I thought the best bowlers they had were Ben Menenti and Grant Stewart. Really looked like the only two who actually had a bit of, like, I know JJ Smuts had a little bit in it, but so him and then Grant, like, in terms of the actual skill level, it really looked to me like pure skill came from like Grant Stewart and Ben Menenti. They were the ones who were really kind of testing batsmen. Everyone else, like Thomas Drucker, what's his name? The Kalugama, the
Yeah.
Italian spinner that they had, those sort of players I
him.
felt were just a bit short of the mark
Mm-hmm.
in most of the games. So, I mean, the balance was definitely off, but you kind of expected that from a team who were basically beginning their World Cup and not beginning their cricketing journey, but are young and fresh into it, I'd say.
Oh, definitely. I think that injury to Madsen certainly sort of threw them off a bit, and to happen in the first game as well. But look, that win against Nepal was epic. I remember seeing sort of a lot of social media posts for days after, and it was definitely one of the highlights for me of the tournament. As was another, and that was one of the games that we live streamed, which was Canada versus New Zealand. Now, New Zealand won this pretty comfortably by 8 wickets, but the talking point, as we said on the day, was and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't sort of kept up with some of the games recently, but it's still the highest innings in the tournament so far. That's Yuvraj Summer, who made 110 against some quality bowling in New Zealand lineup.
T20 World Cup centurion, but that will be broken by Suryavanshi in the next edition, I believe. When the way his career is going on.
Yeah, but what an innings that was for us to witness, right? It was just they struggled.
Remember, it was a brilliant innings. I do remember saying I thought New Zealand were going to chase it comfortably, and they did. I'll be honest, in terms of surprise packages, I didn't expect Canada to go through, but I expect, off the back of like the things they showed in the previous World Cup, I expected them to maybe win a game, be competitive. I was very disappointed with Canada's World Cup. I felt they were way too easy to beat. UAE beat them, of course, so that's why they finished bottom of the group. They lost all 4 of their games, Canada. I just thought they had a very, very bad World Cup, and I expected a bit better from them. I don't know about you.
I definitely did. I did watch some of that game against the UAE, and it was a similar state with a couple of other games from those associate nations where they had the foot on the throat and they had sort of things in their control. But it only takes, as we know, we talked about in our live streams, 1 or 2 bad overs for things to go completely the other way. And I think in that game, that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, for them, look, they had some really good individual moments. The young spinner whose name escapes me, I'll just bring that up in a sec. Anj Patel, so I thought he was quite good as well. They had a few older guys, as I mentioned, one of them retired at the end of the tournament. So look, some things to like, and I think if they can make the next edition, it's going to be only good for them. But I guess some of the other teams that I did keep an eye on as well, the USA, I thought performed pretty well as well. They did win a couple of games.
I mean, look, they made the Super 8s in the last World Cup, which was the biggest surprise, beating Pakistan, of course, in the group stages. They ended up in a group of India and Pakistan again, of course, because if you're going to end up in a group of one, you're definitely ending up in a group of the other. Didn't make it this time, but still gave a good account of themselves. And I mean, of course, still to this point, have the leading wicket taker in the tournament. Probably will be surpassed before the final, before the World Cup finishes. But I mean, Shadley Van Schalkwijk, 13 wickets, like ridiculous. I mean, one of the few seamers who really looked like he was figuring out how to bowl on those Indian pitches, like just these subcontinental pitches. And people talk about Cam Green getting these ridiculous IPO contracts. Why not give this guy a contract? He's taking 13 wickets in Indian conditions for USA in a World Cup. I mean, surely, I'm not saying the most expensive contract, but that's got to be worth a looking, surely. Like, it has to be. If Cam Green can steal a living in the IPL with the performances in T20 cricket he regularly puts up, why can't Shadley Van Schalkwijk get a go? Because I was really impressed with the variations he had. His slower balls were immaculate. The amount of slower balls that just completely outfoxed batsmen, no matter who he didn't take 13 wickets against PNG and Hong Kong and teams like that. He took them against teams like India, Pakistan. In USA, obviously they were
Netherlands,
7 for 6 in the first game at one point, even though Sky, took the game completely away from them. I mean, him and USA, but him in particular, were outstanding. Didn't expect them to go through, obviously, even though they made it through the last World Cup. But yeah, I thought they had a very good account of themselves, USA, and Van Schalkwyk in particular, in my opinion, one of the seamers of the tournament, and may potentially even and deservedly get into the team of the tournament come the end of it. But at this point, there's still a fair bit of cricket to be played, so that could change.
Most definitely.
Stand.
Yeah.
If I'm picking a team of the tournament at the point where we currently are, no doubt he gets in as one of the fast bowlers, because he was absolutely brilliant for them. He was.
Yeah, I think so. One of the other teams in that group that I'll just touch on quickly, because I thought that they might have had a better run of things, was the Netherlands. I watched that opening game against Pakistan.
No,
and
that was another team where I was disappointed after. Even despite losing to Pakistan, I thought they played very well, and it just kind of never kicked on from that point though. And they ended up kind of whimpering out of the tournament, didn't win a game, lost all four, didn't they? I believe.
Yeah, they did, but I guess it.
Oh wait,
it
sorry, no, they didn't. They beat Namibia. Sorry.
No, that's right. Yeah. Tim DeLay smoked it. Yeah. No, they did, man. I think you got to wonder how much of that was to do with the fact that, like I just said before, they had Pakistan on the ropes in terms of almost winning the game in that opening match, and like I said, one or two bad overs at the end, and they were done, and that's unfortunate because I really thought coming into the tournament, I said so in our review, that I thought they'd really win maybe half of those games, especially against the teams around them, including the USA. And no disrespect to the USA, but the Dutch have been in these competitions for significantly longer and have more exposure. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they lost that first game, and that sort of things sort of spiraled for them. They did have that win in the next game against Namibia pretty comprehensively.
Again, another team that I was very disappointed with. I think that over the last few years, I think like it kind of looked like Namibia were building a bit, but this World Cup they just felt like Canada, just kind of felt disappointingly flat.
Yeah.
In the end, and I'm
exactly.
surprised by that.
Yeah.
Again, I wasn't expecting him to go through, but was expecting him to look a bit better.
Most definitely. And look, that's I guess the other disappointing fact. But I guess when you've got those three sort of similar teams in the same group, it does make those matches more interesting. And there is the case that any team can win on the day. But I mean, definitely out of those three teams, the USA were the standout, but the Dutch would have been disappointed. I mean, I'm looking at Ireland in Group B as well, and look, it just never got going for them.
Ireland, I'm less surprised because I just think Ireland have a good team when they're playing in European or English or like Irish conditions, because they're so unfamiliar with the subcontinental conditions. They don't have the greatest spin attack, even like when they play in because England obviously played them a lot, so I'm no stranger to like Ireland. Obviously we had a T20 series against them literally at the back end of last year, in fact. And we've had test matches against them, one-day international series against them. Like, I'm no stranger to watching a team of mine play at Ireland. Like, I'm relatively familiar with their team, and how it's been over the last few years. Yeah. It didn't surprise me. Their spin attack's always been that kind of inconsistent spin attack. George Dockrow can be brilliant on his day, but he's not that consistent. Same with Humphreys. Again, he's not the most consistent spin bowler. Gareth Delaney can be a handy all-rounder spin option, but again, not the most consistent. So I kind of had a feeling they were going to struggle. Like, even when you saw when they were playing those games, because they obviously played their group in Sri Lanka, still seeing them rock up bowling most of their overs to Mark Adair, Josh Little, Barry McCarthy as well, chuck them in there, like still favouriting pace because they just know they didn't have the spin attack to match it. I wasn't really that surprised. I know their batting I was a little disappointed with. Alex Hector didn't have the greatest tournament. I know he had one innings, I believe, where he batted all right. Lorcan Tucker disappointingly flat largely as well. I thought Ross Adair looked good at times. Paul Sterling, but obviously getting a bit past it at this point, maybe.
Quite possibly,
It's a weird one with Ireland. I would say it's disappointing in the fact that they've got the experience over some of these other teams, but at the same time, I didn't expect them to put up much of a fight in these conditions due to the fact that they're just not, of the players they have in their squad, I can't think of any one of them. Maybe Paul Sterling's had a spell in the IPL at one point,
Yeah.
But I can't really think of many others who have really. Most of them by their trade over in England pretty much. And that's about it.
Different conditions
England
too.
and Ireland, obviously. But
But one of the
exception of Paul Sterling, who's done a couple of franchise stuff, in UAE and maybe in the IPL and stuff like that. Not really the experience, so I wasn't that surprised in the end.
No, and they sort of didn't sort of put it much far. One of the teams that did, which was probably unlucky to go through, was Afghanistan. And you and I both know just how well they did.
I mean, look, I still go back to it. They should have beaten South Africa. They should have taken a single off that 3-hit and then taken a single off 2 balls. They could have won the game then and there. And they might have then gone through, and we're looking at a different setup, right, in the Super 8s. But look, it is what it is. But I mean, largely, I think that was what made me also feel a bit disappointed in their performance this World Cup as well. Given the fact that how far they've come in the last 6-7 years or so, I was expecting more from them. I know it wasn't an easy group to get out of because they've still got to beat South Africa and New Zealand, 2 very good T20 teams in their own right, and they weren't given. They didn't really have the luck of the draw having to play those 2 as their first 2 games, so we needed to win one of them, but they could have and probably should have beaten South Africa.
Absolutely.
But, I still think either way, I don't think they had the same kind of oomph about them that they had in the previous World Cup, if you know what I mean.
Not as devastating. I know exactly what you mean.
Like it wasn't really quite the same team this time round.
Yeah.
Not sure what's going on with, like, if Jonathan Trott's going to step down as coach or anything like that. I have no idea. But I was a little disappointed, expecting a bit more from their performances going off in the last World Cup in particular.
Definitely had that sort of firepower against those associate nations and sort of did away with them pretty easily. But I mean, we did the live stream together, and I mean, I'm the same as you. I sort of expected them to beat South Africa, but just let's sort of just talk about that craziness of a double super over. Are we going to see that again in international cricket anytime soon? Just insane. And I still remember saying to you, the ball before the end of that first one, just for a laugh, let South Africa hit that 6 to tie it again. That's exactly what happened, and it was just an insane finish, and from what we sort of thought was going to be a pretty good contest, really evenly matched, to that was just unbelievable. Really, that's really all you can say. But I think from an Afghanistan point of view, got the household names like Mohammad Nabi and Majid, but Rashid Khan kept taking wickets thereafter, and their batsmen really did a good job. But I think at times sort of lost their way. Especially in that game where they could have chased that down without having to wait for that last delivery and taking that single. But they've been in these sort of competitions like the other sides for quite a while, and they've got that experience in those subcontinental conditions. They've played Asian Cups as well, so I mean, disappointing that they we really expected them to go through, I guess, and that they didn't.
Yeah. I mean, look, we'll quickly touch on the last few teams that didn't make it through, just very briefly. I mean, look, I didn't watch a lot of UAE's games. I saw the highlights of their game against Afghanistan. I thought they looked all right in that, although they didn't win. I wasn't really expecting much from the UAE. They, kind of did what they usually do. They turn up to these World Cups, sometimes give a good account of themselves, but ultimately, once again, come up short on the skill and kind of talent department. Really, and not much else I can really say about UAE other than the fact that they had the oldest player in the tournament in their squad.
I did see some of the Oman games, and as I was saying before, I did watch Australia.
Oman for me were the worst team in this tournament. No disrespect to their fans, they just out of all the teams in the tournament, they were the team who just
not up to it.
Were easiest to beat. Sri Lanka at, so Sri Lanka blitzed them. I think they hit over 200 against them. In that first game, Zimbabwe absolutely steamrolled them with the ball.
102 or whatever it was,
Australia crunched them, and obviously Ireland put up 200 plus against them relatively easily as well. So, like, of all the teams in the tournament, they're definitely the one with the worst record. And just to finish off with the other teams who didn't go through. Scotland, of course, look, it's understandable getting called up at short notice after Bangladesh dropped out. But look, I still think Scotland did what I expected Scotland to do. They gave a good account of themselves. If they've got one thing over Ireland, it's definitely their spin department. Mark Watt and Michael Leask are two very handy spinners, and showed it in their games in this tournament. Both of them did, and their batsmen, look, Brandon McMullen impressed. Richie Berrington, a stalwart of that Scottish team, of course, these days. Matthew Cross was still there, although he obviously didn't do too much in this tournament. I mean, look, Scotland were the team who they usually make themselves hard to beat. They really put good, and they, not like, they look like they're competitive, basically, is what I'm trying to say, and they do compete, but usually come up short down to skill level as well. I feel Ireland are just kind of below that level with Scotland at the moment, if we compare the two. I just feel Scotland have players who are better suited to playing in multiple conditions, whereas if we're talking just English conditions, I think Ireland probably have the edge over them, but if we're talking like all conditions, I'll put Scotland above them, and they kind of showed it in this. Nepal were the other team, of course, in that group who didn't go through. They gave us a right scare, of course, in that first
What a game that was, just unbelievable.
From that point on, didn't really do a whole lot and ended up losing all four of their games in the end in the group.
Losing to Italy by 10 wickets, I think, was really the low point, I guess, for them, because they would have seen that as a game that they might have or should have expected to win. Italy in their first tournament, but Italy were fantastic. The Moscow brothers put on an absolute clinic, but I think Nepal, after that, the wheels really sort of fell off, and they'll continue to sort of get this sort of exposure and hopefully put a better showing in next time around. But they were fairly disappointing, I thought.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, that's basically a rundown of all the teams that didn't make it through. Before we finish this video, we'll obviously now pay attention to the teams that have made it through, the ones we haven't yet spoken about, of course, because we've spoken about the West Indies, but we'll touch on the others. I mean, we'll start with the host nations. I mean, look, as you expect, really, from India, I know they're not yet through, but I still kind of think they're probably just going to go through and ultimately win this competition. That South Africa, I mean, look, I could be completely wrong. Zimbabwe could give them troubles, and even if they don't, West Indies could definitely give them troubles. So it's still not over for India, but you'd still be silly not to put money on them going through and even winning this competition.
Yeah.
I think that South Africa game just kind of showed them they're not quite there yet, and they'll probably just focus up and get back to winning ways and just be solid again from this point. Again, could be wrong, but I mean, look, not much really else to say about India. They do what you expect them to do when they're at home. They win, they dominate teams largely, and they have an abundance of talent in their team all throughout. And this is a team of players who is IPL stacked, and that's why you got to imagine it's going to be like that, really. Speaking of, I mean, we did already touch on obviously Sri Lanka being the other host nation. I just felt they started so well, so brightly, but when they lost to Zimbabwe, I felt it just kind of knocked the wheels off. And in these Super 8s, they've been second best throughout, despite being in positions to beat both us and New Zealand. And speaking of New Zealand, we'll touch on a team we haven't really said anything about yet. New Zealand are always there, aren't they? They're this team who's just always in the conversation but can never quite get over the line.
No.
Really, with the exception, of course, of their World Championship, World Test Championship final they won in 21, I believe it was, the first edition of it. But in terms of like White Ball World Cups, they're always there, but they can never really seem to get over the line. Will this be any different this year? I mean, look, they've looked like one of the most impressive teams largely in this competition so far. So it remains to be seen. They were in a sticky situation against Sri Lanka, but an absolutely terrible back end to the innings of bowling from Sri Lanka, basically, and New Zealand are brilliant with the ball. I mean, Matt Henry's one of the most underrated fast bowlers over the last 5, 6, 7 years even.
Yeah, definitely.
Formats without any shadow of a doubt. Ratchet Revenge has been once again solid for them with bat and ball. Daryl Mitchell's always there. Glenn Phillips is one of the most dangerous middle order batsmen in this format. When he gets going, of course, and Mitchell Santner's a fantastic spin bowler as well himself.
Yeah,
so
you got Seifert and Conway as well. Seifert coming off a pretty good season. Finn Allen, sorry. Finn Allen, that's who I was thinking of. And Tim Seifert, Seifert had a pretty good season at the Renegades. Finn Allen was hitting the ball really well. Some really good opening partnerships from those two, and and hopefully they can continue it in this next stage of the tournament and beyond.
Look, I expect it to be a very difficult game against us, which is why I'm glad we're through, because New Zealand always give us difficult games, they do. So I'm glad we're through, so we don't have to worry about if we lose it or not. Obviously it changes who we play, but I don't think it makes all too much of a difference, because we're most likely going to be playing South Africa, West Indies or India, and all three of those are difficult games, so it doesn't really make... It's not like I would prefer any one of those three over the other, because all three of them could beat us, or we could randomly go and beat any of those three on our day as well. So, speaking of us, it's only fair I talk about us, because I haven't said much about England. I think it's been a weird World Cup. Like, the state of our T20 cricket these days, you know, as I said, this is the 5th consecutive tournament where we've made the semi-finals at least, of course. So, I mean, look, we've made 2 finals in the last decade, the one we lost to West Indies and the one we won against Pakistan in Australia. As an Englishman, winning a T20 World Cup in Australia is just fantastic. But, I mean, look, do I think we're going to make the final this time? No, if I'm being honest. I imagine we're probably going to lose in the semi-final again, and if not, then we'll probably lose in the final. Not ruling it out that we could win, knowing us, but look, I think we've been a lot better with the ball in Sri Lankan conditions than we were in Indian conditions. We just weren't getting it right at all in those group stages, and got very lucky. I mean, I think it was against Nepal. Sam Curran defended 7, I think it was, off the final over. Just excellent bowling from him. We, you know, managed to put enough runs on the board to keep Italy at bay. Scotland, I think, was a better performance, but then we were playing a team who's more like us, and West Indies just, you know, beat us relatively comfortably. So the Super 8s, I feel, was where let's just talk about the bowling performance against Sri Lanka was outstanding. Defending what looked like a low total at the time, we came out and made it look like a 250 odd total, didn't we? It was incredible. I don't know how much of our innings you watched, like our game we watched against Sri Lanka, but that was an incredible performance. You know, Archer getting 2 in the power play. Jax has been our player of the tournament so far, in my honest opinion. He's been tasked with that kind of finisher role with the bat. He got 50 late on against Italy. He's had a couple of really handy knocks in between. He had Sri Lanka and Pakistan. He had handy knocks for us. With the ball, he's been phenomenal as well. I mean, Will Jacks definitely for me has been our player of the tournament so far. I mean, like, how have you seen, you know, Harry Brooks' 100 as well against Pakistan? Phenomenal knock from our captain, that was when we needed it from him. Yeah,
I haven't seen a whole lot of you know, the recent England games, but yeah, definitely look, you know, if they do, you know, make it through, and it looks like they're a good chance possibly too.
Well, really? You think we're going to make it to the final?
Well,
we're already in the semis.
Well, I was going to say, well, I was going to say you're a 50-50 chance, and yeah, look, I think sort of coming off that Ashes series, I know it's a different format, but yeah, good to see Jack's bowling well. Yeah, Brook making runs.
This is a weird thing, right? I mean, you know, we talked earlier about Australia having poor preparation for this World Cup. I think we did the opposite. We prepared well. We went to Sri Lanka. We had a series there. We had a one-day series which we won, but then we had the more important T20 series which we won 3-0. And knowing, you know, preparing in the conditions with the team we were likely going to take and play in the World Cup, and it, you know, it's helped so far, even though we've been not amazing but done enough to get through. But as everyone says, if you're going to hit form, you want to hit it later, not earlier in the tournament.
Yeah.
So if we're hitting form now, then that's a perfect time to hit form. So yeah, I'm not complaining if we win this World Cup, despite the fact we played badly in our first game against Nepal. I ain't complaining because we end up winning this World Cup, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so you've already qualified, so it depends on, I guess, who you get in the semi.
Well, as I said, it's probably going to be one of India, South Africa, West Indies, most likely, right? So,
yeah,
as much as I'd love it to be Zimbabwe,
yeah,
really,
but it's a whole different. Pardon the pun. It's a whole different ball game from there. So you've got every chance of making it, but we'll have to wait and see. It's not long now. There's only another week or so left of the tournament with the final Sunday week.
I mean, look, we'll wrap up now. We'll just finish off with the last few teams. Pakistan, firstly, with the exception of that India game and the little scare that Netherlands gave them, I think they've pretty much been solid throughout. That opening batsman of theirs, Farhan or whatever his name is, he's been exceptional for them. He has really good. He looked good against us as well. Got another 60 or so against us. And also one I want to talk about, maybe one of the players with one of the most unique bowling actions, Usman Tariq. He's been pretty damn good for them, hasn't he? I don't know if it's that weird kind of action he has, which is making it difficult for batsmen to pick him largely. Because I've seen a lot of batsmen try and send him out the park and fall short a lot of the time. Maybe it's just the pace isn't on the ball. It's just perfect for the Sri Lankan conditions they've been playing their games in. It's been fun watching him bowl with his kind of like bowl.
I was just going to say, Chester, there's been club cricketers since he came onto the scene trying that every Saturday over the last few weeks now, trying to replicate that action with, I'm sure, various levels of success. But no, that crazy action, just sort of pedestrian. Then
yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a bowler have zero run up to a delivery because it's literally no run up.
Work smarter, not harder, right? That's perfect example.
Yeah. So yeah, look, Babar Azam's always a threat when he gets going, of course. But I mean, look, Pakistan is still in it. That it's really tight between them and New Zealand. If we beat New Zealand, Pakistan just need to beat Sri Lanka and they'll be through. Although the net run rate will take into consideration. Of course, that rain-off between the Pakistan-New Zealand game has made this group interesting, that's for sure. And if we finish off with the other teams we haven't mentioned or talked about yet for the other group, it's the two teams in the south of Africa, South Africa and Zimbabwe. We'll touch on South Africa first. I mean, look, they've won the Test Championship, obviously, recently. They've given a good account of themselves in one-day cricket recently. They were in the last T20 World Cup final that they lost against India. They're looking likely to do another final and potentially even win this one. I mean, South African cricket is in, once again, a very strong position, and it's felt like it's been a long time coming. I don't know about you, but like they've got a very young, impressive team of players, and they've still got players they've left back home. Who I think are just as impressive, mind you, as well. I mean, look, Quinton de Kock came, they could have easily brought Luandre Pretorius to take his place, and I don't think there'd be much difference there. I mean, look, they've got a very impressive young team of players right now. Marco Janssen's been brilliant, as he always is. Maharaj is one of the most consistent spin bowlers in the world and has been for a number of years now. I've been a little disappointed with Rabada, I'm not going to lie. He can be good sometimes, but other times he can be like, what are you doing? And Ngidi's just fantastic, and let's be honest, he's a very underrated fast bowler, Ngidi. I mean, how's your view been on South Africa? Because I think they're definitely one of the favourites right now.
I think they are, and I guess it really just depends on can they take that extra step. Assuming they make the semis, to the final and even winning it. I'm not going to stick my neck out and say they could win it, but I think definitely.
It's a game against West Indies for them.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
They can win though. That's the thing.
Well, I mean, Zimbabwe know firsthand what the Windies can do.
I mean, they would South Africa blew India out of the water in India. They absolutely destroyed them the other day.
I did see parts of that game, yeah. So it's possible. I mean, even in that Afghanistan game, we saw, Brevis and Miller and those sort of guys, what they're capable of, some top middle order down. So,
I mean, look, it's definitely a journey of cricket that I'm sure these legends of South African cricket, your Jacques Callises, your Sean Pollocks, A.B. de Villiers, Faf, Dale Steyn, Mark Boucher, Hansie Cronje, if you call him the legend of South Africa, John T. Rhodes, Lance Klusener, the finisher,
Alan Donald,
Ashwell Prince, Alan Donald, of course, Mr. Ferocious himself.
Yeah, Pat Simcox.
Don't know if that was his name, but Micaiah Intini, the list goes on, doesn't it? Absolute legends of the game they've produced over the years.
Yeah.
KP, even though he played for England. Marnus Labuschagne. Jonathan Trott. Jason Roy. I mean, the list goes on, doesn't it? Players in Marshall, South Africa, never played for them.
I was going to say the Curran brothers, but they're Zimbabwean,
Michael Nisa, I mean, the list goes on, doesn't it? Curtis Campbell, I mean, stop me whenever you want. David Visa, there you go.
He's another one who didn't play in the tournament, but I was going to say the Curran brothers, but they're Zimbabwean, but that's right. But speaking of Zimbabwe, look, I think even though they won't progress, I think they've had a fantastic tournament, and the fact that they didn't even make the tournament last time around in the US and the Windies, look, speaks volumes of what they've done this time around. I think it's a credit to them. And the one thing I actually didn't know until the other day, Courtney Walsh was actually brought in as a bowling consultant for Zimbabwe. So
It works. I mean, look,
absolutely.
and Richard and Garava have been one of the fast bowling partnerships of the tournament. Brad Evans, you can even chuck in that competition as well, because he's been
Underrated.
Yeah, I mean, with the batting as well, up until their game against the West Indies the other day, Brian Bennett obviously had not been dismissed in the tournament at all in the group stages.
Yeah.
Very impressive. I mean, yes, you're right, it's probably going to end in the Super 8 for them, most likely. But there's still nothing to say it hasn't been a phenomenal effort from Zimbabwe.
Absolutely.
It's looking like it's starting to potentially build back into something now. Obviously, they've given a few decent accounts of themselves in Test cricket over 2025, although it's having some heavy defeats along the way. They're definitely building again as a team. They might not reach the late 90s, that sort of level that they were, of course.
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, but they are building something again, which is kind of good to see.
Absolutely agree.
Loving it. As you can tell.
Pommy, if you're watching, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Love your work, exactly right. Did see his chat with Haydos the other week, and I thought that was superb. But I guess from their point of view, I mean, we can't go past Sikandar Raza. Fantastic leader, leading by example. Ryan Bell's been good as well. I think what they really need is this continued exposure against the best sides, and I think that's a message from me for the ICC. Zimbabwe and the Windies and these sides playing well is only going to be good for cricket overall. So give them more games against these top quality sides, and we'll be able to see what they can do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, that wraps up the teams. I think we've covered them all now. Before we wrap up this episode, it's only fair that we kind of go with not predictions, but I mean, look, who's been your batsman of the tournament so far, Ben? Like across all games that you've seen, all results.
I'm going to put in a guy that we just talked about before, because I think not being dismissed in a tournament has to be commended in the group stages. Yeah, and that's Brian Bennett. And again, in that game, the two games against Australia and Sri Lanka, he really stood up in both of those games, and he's definitely my tip. Hopefully with the remaining games that they've got all game, hopefully he can put his best foot forward to end the tournament on a high. What about you?
I mean, it's a fair shout to say Brian Bennett, because he has been very impressive. Maybe less so against the West Indies. He's only got 5 on 5, I believe. But in the group stage, at least, I'm not going to pick him though. I'm going to pick someone who's been consistent even into the Super 8 so far, and that's Farhan, whatever his last name is or first name is. Again, apologies to Pakistan cricket fans, but I think he's been phenomenal this tournament. I'm pretty sure he is still the leading run scorer, if I'm correct, at this point. I would have said Nisanka if it hadn't gone so badly for him in the Super 8s, because he was brilliant in the group stages, but I can't overlook the fact that he's got 5 runs in 2 games across their 2 Super 8 games so far. But Farhan, for me, has been very good at the top of the order for Pakistan. I mean, and obviously, who's been your bowler of the tournament, Ben? So far, of course.
Well, a guy. Look, I'm gonna go one serious entry, but I'm gonna go one for the effort award, I suppose, and the spirit award of the tournament. Look, I think Matt Henry so far for mine, but the two I want to give shout outs to, and one of them you mentioned before, one of them I mentioned before as well. Trying to find his name here.
Shadley Van Skalk.
That's exactly who I'm talking about. Yeah, look, fantastic effort from a nation that probably wasn't expected to do a whole lot.
Another South African, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. Let me just bring up the. Sorry, my cricket info's deciding to do me wrong here. Here we go. Let's have a look. So the Spirit Award I want to give to a bowler who, look, his team got absolutely belted, but I mentioned him in the opener. I like my sort of celebrations, whether it's on the football pitch or the cricket field.
Sure, I had to give the award. My Spirit Award goes to Shakil Ahmed.
to sort of not be content with, you could have your wicket keeper take your wicket for you and guarantee it, but to do all the work yourself and nearly take your wicket keeper out in the process, take the catch, and then go out with the the Cristiano Ronaldo worldwide celebration. Look, hats off to him, and I think his hat actually did come off at that point, if he was wearing it. So, look, credit to him. There weren't many highlights for them, but mine was for highlight, and he gets my Spirit Award for the tournament.
For your actual best bowler.
Oh yeah, Van Shalwijk, I think, in that team. Van Shalwijk, yeah, Matt Henry as well for New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one to pick because I think this has been a World Cup that's largely been dominated by bowlers thus far. I think it's fair to say. Matt Henry is a very good shout, even though he didn't do an awful lot in the group stage. The reason I'm picking him is because of the fact that he's one player I look at, a bowler in particular I look at, and he's capable of not carrying, but being a huge part in taking New Zealand potentially to winning this whole thing. But if we're not just picking there's other names I can chuck in there, like Chakravarti's been fantastic for India as a spin bowler, of course, someone who's just been growing over the last few years in the IPL and just started to become a real solid part of this Indian bowling setup. Always going to try. I've got to stick up for my own countrymen. Will Jackson's been phenomenal as a part, someone who's come in as that all-rounder finisher kind of person with bat and ball, particularly with the ball. He was excellent against Sri Lanka as well, I thought, and very good good at times in the group stages. Jamie Overton as well has been impressed with me. I'm not going to say he's been bowler of the tournament, but he has impressed me. And Lungi Ngidi, who I mentioned before, who's usually Mr. Consistent for South Africa at the moment when it comes to bowling, and well as Maharaj. I mean, look, there's so many people I could chuck in there for the bowler of the tournament. So I mean, look, take your pick, really, right? But yeah, I mean, look, that will wrap up our chat. I mean, look, I think we both kind of stayed on our thing that we still think India's going to win this whole thing. At least I still feel that way. What about you?
I think so, with the home crowd behind them and them being able to play those conditions.
I feel they'll beat Zimbabwe relatively comfortably. No discredit Zimbabwe, but I think India will. And with that confidence back, I think they'll just go and beat West Indies, make a semi-final, probably play us, probably beat us, get to the final and win it most likely. So yeah, look, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Remember, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Obviously, update on the live stream. We unfortunately won't be live streaming the final 12:30 time on a Sunday night. It's just, we're human beings at the end of the day. Not just that, but for work purposes, my partner has to work early on Monday morning, and it's just a bit, the timing's just not really great. But we've still got other live streams planned. We've got a Melbourne City Sydney game in the A-League that's coming up in about a couple of weeks' time, I believe. We're going to try and live stream that one. Obviously, that Saints game, we've still got that one in the works, and potentially that Bayern San Pauli game, which we definitely want to try and do. That one will be a 3 a.m. kickoff most likely in April, I believe.
I think it's one, but we'll check on that. But yeah, the live stream for the final. I mean, I've got the opening Saints game next Sunday night as well, and I'm all being honest, if we win, I'm going to be
some shorts from Ben about his stuff this season. He's adamant they're gonna do something this season.
They are, and for my mental health, they need to. But definitely, if we win that game next Sunday night, I'm going to be fairly hungover, I think. So to do a live stream at midnight's probably not the best thing for me either. It's going to be a pretty wild night of celebrating.
Beat Essendon. Got to go beat Essendon in
up in Ballarat. Yeah, up in Ballarat, exactly right. Half constructed Ballarat. So yeah, I mean we've got our Monday review to come, obviously. So that's going to be hopefully hopefully a good weekend of action.
Yeah, on Der Klassiker, yeah, it's huge. Dortmund have just been dumped out of the Champions League this morning, so could Bayern basically dump them out of the Bundesliga title race this weekend, because it will effectively be over if it goes to 11 points, in my opinion, at this point.
Yeah, we've got Hoffenheim as well, so
we're not Bayern, we're not Arsenal, we're Bayern, so we tend to hold on to leads when we're in title races. And we've got Hoffenheim as well, so on the road, but hoping to after last weekend, hopefully we'll pick up a point. Yeah. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed our little catch up on where we're at in the T20 World Cup. Two big games tonight: South Africa, West Indies, followed by India, Zimbabwe. I mean, look, could start to decide that group really. Well, one of them definitely could. So yeah, I mean, look, both South Africa and the West Indies both with a win under their belts, so either of them win that game and what they're through, of course. So just have to wait and see how it goes. England are through though. That's the one main thing that matters. We're into another semi-final, so I'll take that. But we'll leave it there without rambling too much as we go past the hour mark on this video. So yeah, we'll see you guys on Monday with the next review. So yeah, peace out, take care, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Take care, guys.